Hi IndyCar fans, it's Martha and I want to welcome you to episode 18 of Cruising 41. We're going to be covering the details of what happened at Road America this past weekend, and it was a win for Christian Lundgaard with Aero McLaren, his second win in 2026. And there was plenty of excitement and plenty of chaos and plenty to talk about when it comes to how this race unfolded. Quali, we had Alex Palou yet again on pole, his fifth pole in a row, and David Malukas was there on the front row with him in second, and Marcus Armstrong, he secured third. It was very interesting to see, and also great to see, that the MSR team had two very competitive cars this weekend. It didn't pan out the way they would have hoped, but they were, very competitive, very racy, and quite strong throughout the race. So I made a comment on my socials about Alex Palou, and he's quite dominant when it comes not only to racing, but also when it comes to qualifying. So I mentioned in there, maybe we need to start calling Alex Palou poles Polo. I know, LOL, but I just thought it was just, since he is being so dominant, maybe we can create now a hashtag to, get every one of his poles to be called Polo. Anyway, nor here nor there. Pato qualified 10th. And so, as you know, he's been having some issues with the car underneath him, and he hasn't been able to find that competitive winning formula for him to start getting on, podiums and wins. I mean, it's we'll talk more about Pato. So the race, when we were giving kind of like, or we were able to see the tire designations, it was fascinating because tire strategy here is always critical. Well, tire strategy is critical regardless, but here at Road America, it is with the tire deg and with questions about which tire was going to be the most competitive one, then it was critical to see how drivers and teams have chosen their strategy for the start. And we saw the first three on the grid choosing the alternate strategy. And Palou, Malukas, and Marcus Armstrong all on the alternate strategy. So during the start of the race, we had our first issue. Remember, this was a very chaotic race, and we'll get into the details, but the very first incident was an impact or a touch between Christian Lundgaard and Scott Dixon. Actually, Christian Lundgaard was the one who hit Scott Dixon, and in that impact, his front wing was damaged. So Christian Lundgaard had to go into the pits and get that taken care of, get a new front wing. But of course, he lost a lot of positions and a lot of time in the process, and he was last. We'd start seeing some of the initial pit stops taking place, and then on lap 15, we had our first caution. And that was because Roman Grosjean, coming out of the pits, one of those wheels were not bolted properly, so he came off, and that was our first full course caution. Felix Rosenqvist and others that were on the primary tire strategy, they were able to pit before the caution came out, and so that put Rosenqvist at the front of, in first place. So I want to insert a comment here because we saw Mick Schumacher receiving a penalty for speeding in the pit lane. That was like far from ideal because there was a lot of conversation and a lot of noise, good noise, relative to this was Road America could be a track that could suit him very well and where he could potentially get a good result, because it is similar in conditions to those tracks that he is raced in Europe. Unfortunately, the penalty didn't help, and that put him way behind. He still did, he still had a competitive, strong race, but not one that would yield the result that he would have wanted, or that everybody was expecting from him during this race. Another penalty for speeding in the pit lane took place, and this was no other than Alex Palou. Hey, the guy's only human. And so this was an uncharacteristic mistake, so he also received the penalty, and well, that also impacted his race, obviously. Then on lap 30, we had a full course caution. This time it was Christian Rasmussen, and his ECR car stopped. Very similar to what we saw with Alexander Rossi's ECR in the Indy GP. I think that's when that happened to him. So definitely some reliability issues, maybe a hybrid issue from the ECR team. And so that gave us a full course caution. At that point of time, so Pato had to go into the pits to get served. The pits were closed, so therefore he received a penalty, and he was sent to the back of the race, or the back of the field. That was heartbreaking to see, but at the same time, I just would like to emphasize that it seems as though that now we're seeing consistency race and race again from race control when it comes to these penalties, because we saw a similar situation happening with Scott Dixon at the last race. And he also received, the same penalty. It was not an ideal situation for Pato and for his strategy and for his tires, but so that took place. Then lap 34, we had yet again another full caution. This time it was because there was debris on track. A piece of Marcus Ericsson's car, apparently, but it was in a place that it was dangerous to leave it, because it was, I don't know if I would call it the racing line, but it was in a place where other cars could hit it and get damaged, or worse, get into an incident or an accident. So there was that yellow. Armstrong was in the lead, and Felix Rosenqvist, for some reason, kept losing the car, and then he started losing a lot of positions. But Marcus Armstrong was looking very strong, and he was able to hold on, and he was able to get in the lead, very competitive, very strong, and setting the pace. With about 18 laps to go, we also saw some really good racing, respectful in my opinion racing, but quite competitive, between Alex Palou and Will Power. I think at one point of time they touched. Thankfully there was no damage to either car. So I think Will Power this weekend was obviously looking for a great result. So he was not only competitive with a good car underneath him, but he was also fearless and being very aggressive, but without being unprofessional. At least I don't think so. But you could tell that he was doing everything he could to get that result that he is been craving. So at this point of the race, Christian Lundgaard had recycled his way to the front of the field, and we started seeing him chasing David Malukas. And as a matter of fact, they started to get very racy, and they started to be very close and get in a good racing competition between the two. At that point, they were fighting for second because, like I mentioned, Marcus Armstrong was in the lead, and he was like solidly, in the lead. But then sadly, with 3 laps to go, Marcus Armstrong's MSR car starting losing power, or start going slow rather, and he had an engine issue, and unfortunately he had to DNF. It was sad to see because he had been driving a very competitive, very effective, and very solid race, and for him to for his engine to have an issue with 2 laps to go, thereabouts 3 laps to go rather, it was just very unfortunate to see. But that gave us additional chaos and a spicy finish. I mean, that's not the way you want to see a race to end, with someone being gutted after not being able to finish. But, then it was the variable that gave us like 2 very spicy laps left. Then during the restart, Nolan Siegel had contact with Joseph Newgarden, and he spun and he was out of the race. So we had yellows again. So Joseph Newgarden received the penalty as a result of that. So more chaos continued to unfold, but it wasn't over. There was still more chaos to come. And then we saw again Will Power, who, like I mentioned, he was like being very aggressive with a good car underneath him and just trying to be competitive and get a good result. He kind of had a situation with Graham Rahal. They both were fighting for third, for the last podium position, and unfortunately Graham Rahal ended up hitting the wall and not able to finish the race. So in my opinion, it was competitive, fierce racing without getting into be disrespectful or borderline aggressive or unsafe. But unfortunately, we had Graham Rahal not able to finish the race. So that brought another caution yet again. And with that last caution, we ended the race. So Lundgaard won. Lucas was second and Will Power was third. So like I mentioned, this is the second win for Christian Lundgaard with Arrow McLaren, and his second win in a road course for him. For David Malukas is yet another second. His time will come. He is very talented and he's very capable, and he will be able to get that first win. But thus far, that win is just completely evading him. Will Power ended up third. I am really gutted for Marcus Armstrong. He has been in the mix since the Indy 500. MSR has been giving their both drivers very competitive cars. Of course, Felix Rosenqvist won the Indianapolis 500, but Marcus Armstrong was very competitive at that race as well. And then this race, he was looking very strongly that he was going to win. He had this race, even though Christian Lundgaard was getting closer to him, there were 2 laps to go. And yeah, I know these are the longest laps that we have, I believe, in the entire IndyCar calendar at Road America, but I think it would have been very difficult for him to lose this race unless there was an issue, which, like we said, he had. So I also think Marcus Armstrong is going to get his first win soon. He is a very complete, rounded racing driver, and he also has a really good car, competitive car with MSR, and so that win will come. Before we talk about Paddle, I just want to make a comment about the final standings, because if you were following um, the race on Fox or on television, they were showing Kevin Simpson as third, and that was as a result of that incident between Graham Rahal and Will Power. But then when the podium positions were announced, it was Will Power in third. So there is been a lot of confusion as to why that happened, and I'm actually a little surprised that there hasn't been a definite explanation of what happened. But what it seems like is that they took, since the race was under the final caution at that time, and Will Power was third once Graham Rahal was out of the race, it seems as though under that yellow caution scenario, they, instead of taking how the race ended, they take at the time of the caution who is in third. And at that time, it was Will Power. This is just based on some research I have done about how the rules apply. So it seems as though that was why Will Power was in the podium and in third. So now let's talk Paddle. This was not obviously the result we all wanted. I think there were the ingredients in play for him to get a first podium and maybe fight for more, given all the chaos and the circumstances that were, that surrounded this race. So the first variable is, I don't know that he would necessarily had been better off starting on the alternate tire, because I don't think he had been feeling that comfortable with it. And it seems as though the Aero McLaren car behaves better with the primary tire. So he started on the primary, so that was a good call. I think where his race started going, or his race went downhill, just to be frank and fair, is under that service that he was given, that the team called him in when the pits were closed. Now, I have not been able to see anything definite as to, was he not gonna make it? Like, was it a fuel issue? And again, when you consider how this how the lap at Road America is such a long lap, it could have been that fuel was going to be an issue and he was not going to be able to complete the lap. So they needed to serve him to be able to get him that additional fuel that he needed, so he wouldn't just stop on track. I don't know that was the case or not. But definitely, I think what we can all agree is that stop and getting served during a closed pit lane was not ideal. I did notice when I was watching the race, because I was following his onboard, and if you follow the onboard, there is like a delay from what you see on the onboard versus what you see during the the live feed and on Fox or on TV. And there was an indication, if I remember correctly, there was an indication on that on board that he was going to be going to the pits, but then the yellow came about and they closed the pits. He has been having issues. He's not been feeling comfortable with the car, and we just hope that for the upcoming races he can get a good result. It is just unbelievable to me that here we are almost halfway through the season and he has not had not even one podium or a win. So we all know how talented he is and how capable he is and how he has put this Arrow McLaren in places where it shouldn't go because of how magical he is and how talented he is. But anyway, so we'll see how the rest of the season unfolds for him. And of course, we're continuing to, to root for him and to be there for him as a fan. And but we also are trying to understand, like, what is happening, right? I mean, like, why are we not getting the results, and why is he not getting the results that we all know he's capable of? So relative to championship standings, Palou is still leading the championship with David Malukas in second, and he's 60 points behind Palou. And Kyle Kirkwood is now third, and he is behind David Malukas by 1 point. Next, we go to Mid-Ohio in a couple of weeks' time. It's a 2.258 mile road course. So here we go yet again to another road course. Pato has won there before, so hopefully this is going to be his chance to get a win, his first win of 2026. So Palou won it last year, and we know how competitive Alex Palou is. So the question is, can Arrow McLaren give Pato a competitive car, a good solid strategy for him to be able to fight for a win? It's way overdue for him to get his first win, his first podium. Again, he won here a couple of years ago. If he's given the right tools, he'll definitely be very competitive. Anyway, so that is kind of like the recap about Road America. We don't have a race next week, so I'll see you in about 2 weeks' time to cover Mid-Ohio. Please like the video if you like it, subscribe if you haven't subscribed, interact with me on my socials, leave me your comments. What do you think about the situation with Pato? And then, interact with me on my socials. I'm just getting them now here so you can view them. And I look forward to seeing you all in a couple of weeks. So thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.